Hello, everyone. How beautiful it is. How great joy that I'm experiencing right now, being here once more with Brad Laughlin and having so many amazing things to announce to you. And I'm absolutely delighted about that and looking forward so much to it unfolding here at in Kansas City at Unity on Holly, and it will be wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And let's just take a minute and do the invocation. I have my own way of paraphrasing the invocation from Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of the Unity movement. And so let's begin with that as we start. I am now in the presence of pure being. I am illuminated and immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, of love, and of wisdom. We acknowledge this presence and this power, O beloved Spirit. Now dissolve and erase our human limitations, and from your pure substance of love, bring into manifestation our world according to your perfect law. And so it is. Amen. Oh, it's so beautiful, so wonderful to have you here. And I'm delighted that you're with us today. Thank you, Garth. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your gift of technology. I don't have it. And so I am just ecstatically happy that you do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so one of the things that I did today in preparing for the call, I got the picture that Brad had sent me some time ago that is of him and Leslie and me at Unity of Tustin. And I think this picture was taken in 1995. And on the back, he says, "Thank you for all your love and support over so many years, my old soul friend." And then he invokes the future. "Here's to many more happy memories yet to be created." And we were just talking before we all came on live about this co-creation of a home event at Holly and how it's a first for me. And I was the first to ever invite Brad to come as a solo speaker after Leslie Temple Thurston was pulling back from speaking. And he signs it with all my love and gratitude, Brad. And so it's sitting right up here so I can look over and see it during this call today. And so I can feel Leslie's presence, my beloved Leslie and Brad's life partner. How beautiful it is to know that the life of the soul never changes. The soul is always already present, invisible and visible. It's both and. In the human body, the human awareness shifts and changes as time goes by. And in timelessness, there is only that, only oneness, only the knowing of the soul. And so Brad and I are going to do a divine experiment today, a holy experiment, I love to call them. We're going to co-lead, and we're going to model that co-leading in order that we may discover for ourselves exactly what that means and model it, reveal it to you as it is happening. So, how do we know? How do we recognize someone to invite as a co leader? I can tell you how it's worked for me. I began by acknowledging and witnessing. It's the first of the witness state of the mind yoga practices. I begin by witnessing the vibration, the essence of the all that is within the one that I'm sitting with or spending time with or co-leading potentially with. And I can see that so clearly in Brad, so profoundly. It always begins with love and above because it's non-dual. It's different than the realms of vibration that show up in the human experience of creation. It's a non dual awareness. And we'll be talking potentially some more about that. It has love in it, it has the peace that passes understanding. That's the old scripture word, passes, passeth, Passeth, meaning beyond, a peace beyond understanding. And it leads to living in joy. So Brad got the download in meditation for the theme, and it's return to joy. So Brad, come in and tell us what that means to you.
Well, thank you, Marge. It's always great to be with you. This is our third time together on this podcast, and I always love our conversations. They're always very sacred and unusual, and I love how you are spontaneous. You don't we don't plan it, so we don't know what's going to come out. I remember when you were the first person to ever invite me to do an event on my own. People were always inviting Leslie to do an event. And you invited me to come to Unity of Tustin when I wrote my book, Discovering Archangel Michael, like 20 years ago. And you said, please come. So I always hold you in my heart in a very special place. And and so yeah, today we wanted to talk about joy. And what I shared with you when you asked me what I felt could be a topic was I have felt increasingly over the years the importance of talking about joy and remembering that joy is the reason that we incarnate as souls on planet Earth. And I just feel like, most of us forget that. Because especially now at this extraordinary time that we're all living in on planet Earth, it's so challenging in so many ways. There's so many changes happening that we forget about joy. But the truth is that joy is our highest vibration. It is the highest manifestation of the spiritual journey. And like I said, the purpose, the purpose of life. So more and more, I've been talking about joy, living in joy, remembering joy, practicing joy. And so I think maybe one of the things we could talk about today, one of the aspects that I think a lot of people are interested in is, the question on many people's minds is how can I practice joy when there's so much suffering in the world? We tend to feel maybe guilty or ashamed even of our joy if everybody else is worrying, right? Worrying about the state of the world. There's a lot of that. And I see worry and joy as opposites. You can have one or the other, but you can't have both at the same time. You can choose one or the other, but that's it. And it's the famous reggae song, "Don't Worry, Be Happy," right? Leslie and I wrote a whole chapter in one of our books on that subject because most people think it's just it's a reggae song. It's for people who are stoned. But that's not what it is. That was a saying by many people know, I'm sure, the famous Indian saint of the early 1900s, Mayor Baba. Um, and he was famous for saying, "Don't worry, be happy." And then later it was turned into the reggae song that became so popular by Bobby McFerrin. But Mayor Baba had many, many Western students. He had a base in India and he also had a base in America, and he had lots of European and American students. And he would get letters from them. Pardon me. He would get letters from them, you know, listing their issues, listing their problems, and asking for advice. And his advice was very simple. Don't worry, be happy. Because my experience is that many, many Westerners, probably everybody listening to this call, we were taught to worry. And we're taught that to worry about something or somebody is to love them. Worry equals love. And that is not true. That is actually opposite of truth. Because what is worry but a mini dose of fear, right? So fear and love are opposites. You can have, again, one or the other, but you can't have both at the same time. So that little tiny sentence, "Don't worry, be happy," 4 words, but high, high, profound spiritual principle that is so much more challenging to live than people can imagine, until you really try it. You really try practicing that. And, that's if we have a strong witness. You were talking about the witness before, Marge, and it's something that is at the heart of what I teach and what Leslie taught and what Corelight offers is the practice of witnessing. And that's simply the witness is the objective observer. It's the part of us, it's the part of you that watches you being you, the part that takes a bird's eye view from above and can get a perspective from a detached, spiritually detached perspective on the personality, basically, or the ego. And if we can practice witnessing, I would guarantee for each of us that we can find moments where we're in worry, but for the most part, we're not even aware of it. My observation is that worry is sort of like the water that the fish is swimming in for most Westerners. Most Westerners don't even realize how much worry we do. And that's fear, how much fear we're in. And it's encouraged. Like I said, it's taught to us as children. If you really care about somebody, if you love them, you will worry about them. And like I said, it's the opposite of the truth. So to witness that, to witness times where we're in fear and worry, which is so rampant right now. Everybody who attunes to the media, in any kind of media, uh, the written word, podcasts, if you watch the news, we are being, I used to say we're being invited into fear and worry all the time. And now I changed that. I say we're being incited, not invited. We're being incited into fear and worry more and more and more. It's increasing. So anyway, that's why I feel like this is such an important topic for our times to recognize the degree of worry and fear that we're being incited into and to try to, to practice the witnessing where we see how much are we in that throughout the day. And it's very simple when we witness it to all we have to do is observe it and say the word worry. We just name it. We just say there's worry there. And that immediately wakes us up to it and we can turn it around. That way we have a choice. If we're a witness to it, we have the choice to say, I can choose differently. I don't need to be in worry about this thing. I can choose something else. And I would invite, anybody to choose joy instead. Just like Mayor Baba did, don't worry, be happy. So anyway, that's kind of a very basic, I feel like that's a primer for all of us. It's a good reminder for all of us these days to remember that we can choose joy, um, even though there's suffering in the world, even though there are great challenges facing all of us and the world, we can still be in joy. And there's a lot more that can be said about that. But before I just keep speaking, Marge, is there anything that you want to say about that?
Well, I had an interesting surprise this morning, just this morning. I have a box of these cards that I have sitting right by my desk, and I look at them every now and then, not every day, but every now and then. And they are the ones that you and Leslie created called Enlightened Living cards. And so I thought, oh, it would be interesting to see what I pulled for today. So I took the whole deck out and with my eyes closed, just pulled a card. And I was stunned when it said feeling grounded. And I thought, well, that wasn't what I was looking for. And yet, then I went on down. Material things are transitory. They come and go. If you are grounded on the transitory, which everyone is to some degree, we will be devastated when these things are taken away. And then the important conclusion, what we do not see is that they were never meant to last forever. They are the things of this dream world, and their appearance and disappearance must be accepted with equanimity. If we can see past the transitory and ground on the clear light of the self with a capital S, the superconscious, we will feel and be quite secure no matter what is happening around us. When adversary strikes, we will have inner peace. That is freedom.
Mm,
And I
beautiful.
thought, wow, I love being grounded in spirit. And you know what, Brad, over the years, many years now, I think that's actually happened in my life. For over 50 years, I've multiple times a day quietly said in my own awareness the promise from A Course in Miracles, and quietly said in my heart space, with my mind directing it, prayers of Come Holy Spirit. That's being grounded in spirit. And that has made a huge, huge difference in my life. And you and Leslie have been part of that difference.
Uh, oh,
uh,
thank you. Can I give you a reflection?
yes.
I've always observed that you are extraordinarily grounded in the spiritual core, the core of light within. I've always observed you as grounded in that place. And to me, that is the foundation for the journey. When we learn to ground on the spiritual core, when we learn to ground in spirit and the Holy Spirit, there are different names for it. But when we really learn to ground on that, and as opposed to grounding on the house or the car or the relationship or the money or the things of the material world, that's that's the birth of true inner peace. And to tie this back to our conversation about joy, the way that I look at joy is, like I said, joy is the highest manifestation of the spiritual journey. And how do we get there? It begins with inner peace. That's the foundational layer, inner peace. And that comes from a deep relaxation of the body into, and it's the card you drew. How do we have that deep relaxation and inner peace? It's from the groundedness on spirit, not on the things of the world, which are precarious at best, right? And as we all know. And so, relaxation and inner peace are the foundation. And then on that, we build towards joy. I've always observed that you have a very deep level of inner peace and a joy. I don't think I've ever seen you not in that state. Would you say that do you live in that state all the time?
I, I choose sometimes to explore outside of that state. It's very interesting. I call that meeting where people where they are. But every
Mhm.
time I've experimented with that, it's been a failure. Why? It's too painful for me. I can't live with it. And
Yeah,
so I have to go back to this natural state of being that is about peace and love and joy.
yeah.
And even on the wall in the kitchen, I posted this on Facebook one time, is a picture of three things. And the bottom one is living love. The middle one doesn't have a word on it, but for me, it represents peace. And it's like the Jerusalem cross. It has equal breadth and depth, both and. It's both the vastness of the vertical and the horizontal. And that lets me live in joy without an opposite. And so I have it purposely posted right above Ed's head as we sit at the dinner or breakfast table. Because anytime, and it still happens, anytime I get triggered, the way out of the trigger is to stop, pause, breathe. May take several times. Take a deep breath, relax, move back into love, and simply let it be. Love that old Beatles song. Let it be. Let it be. Life on the human plane for me has included a lot of joy and a lot of sorrow. Khalil Gibran is famous for saying joy and sorrow are opposite sides of the same coin. If it were not for the joy, you would not be experiencing the sorrow. And I constantly remember that. about people who have died in my life and passed over, and people I miss, people I wish were still here. And I really take a deep breath and realize, oh my God, they are still here in the invisible. That includes my son. That includes my parents, birth parents. Includes beloved souls that I've shared moments in time with. At some point in time, it'll include you and Leslie, I'm sure. And I'll probably be the one on the invisible because I'm older than both of you. Amazing how it works.
I have a feeling you're going to be sticking around for a long time. That's my intuition. You are needed, right? We're all needed right now. So,
And that will lead us into our later announcement of the home event that we haven't even totally promoted yet because we only talked about it and agreed on it yesterday.
well, I can tell you it just got announced through my email list, so it's already out there.
You had
I
you
did.
led the way. I knew you'd lead the way in the home events.
Do you want to speak about it? Is this a good time? You want to tell people about it?
Yes, that would be wonderful. You know what I'm aware of, and I even mentioned this in the email. I'm so aware that a holly is a living holly is the home. It's what Ed and I both call uh, the place that we live. And it's a building. It's a beautiful expression of elegance and beauty and grace. It's on a dead end cul-de-sac. So the entry level is on the street level when you enter, and you can come in the front door or the garage street level. And then it circles around to the lower level. Isn't that interesting if we could circle around to our own lower levels and love them?
That's a good metaphor.
Interesting thought. And it circles around to the lower level, and the lower level, which is where you'll be staying in the guest room, is also on the street level. But a little further back, it doesn't have a driveway to the street. All it has is just beautiful grass and bushes and trees and lovely, lovely vegetation. And actually, Coral Rose, that I saw is on the call, is going to be joining us here. And you will both have your own private rooms and private bathrooms. Because it's equally elegant. Um, and one of the things I found out from Coral Rose was about human design. And I just got my book yesterday, Coral. I don't know if you know about the individual books, but I just got it yesterday. And it said that one of the signs that I'm on my path that go along with the moment I was born in Boulder, Colorado in 1939 at 4:30 in the morning. From the moment I was born is beauty and elegance. And I thought, wow, this is the manifestation of that. Holly is that. And this is part of the reason I came, and I don't totally understand it yet, but it's going to be revealing itself. Do you want to talk more about what a home event looks like? You're the master of them. You and Leslie did
Yeah,
them
I know.
for
I'd be
years.
delighted to. I'd be happy to. That's what I've done the last couple of weekends. We've had small group retreats and intensives in the living rooms of people who invited me, and it's very cozy and intimate. We limit the number of people who can come, and uh, we do a deep dive into the principles of what I'm calling mind yoga, the yoga of the mind. We've talked about it on your podcasts before, so we won't go into too much depth here, but it's the basic practices, the simple but extraordinarily powerful practices for transformation that Leslie presented in the Marriage of Spirit book that we wrote. And the principles are a synthesis of three different disciplines. One is the yoga of the mind. It's a very, very ancient practice, one of the four main yogas. So anybody who's on a path of yoga will know. Most times now, when you say the word yoga, people think of the yoga. It's hatha yoga. It's the yoga of the poses, the physical poses. But that's just one form of yoga. The one of the main forms is the yoga of the mind, the ancient practice. And so all we've done is revamped that and brought it more into a modern context and given some very simple little practices to help people with it. And the yoga of the mind is very much about self-inquiry. It's about looking in the mirror and doing some self-examination and looking at who we truly are. So the marriage of spirit is a blend of the yoga of the mind as well as what we call spiritual psychology and also the reconciliation of opposites. And so, uh, again, simple little journaling practices for the most part that you can do in the privacy of your own home, but extraordinarily powerfully transformative. Anybody who's practiced them knows the truth of that. So anyway, we'll be diving deeper. Marge, you put me in touch with the Temple Buddhist Center in Kansas City. And so on Sunday, October 20th, is it the 5th or 6th? I can't remember what the Sunday is. I think it's the 26th. Yeah, 26th. I'll be the guest speaker at the two Sunday morning services, and then we'll do a 1 hour workshop to just do some beginning practices with the yoga of the mind, with mind yoga. And then we'll do an intensive at the Temple Buddhist Center on the Monday. And then we'll come to your house on Tuesday, the 29th, I believe that would be. Or sorry, I'm getting the dates wrong, but it's the Tuesday, whatever that is, 28th or 29th. And
28.
28th, Tuesday the 28th, we'll be at your home
Yes.
at Holly.
The
And yeah,
very first inaugural event, the first ever, the revelation, the revealing, the birthing of the miracle at Holly.
yay. Well, isn't it interesting that you were the first person to ever invite me to do an event on my own, and now here we're having another first. We're going to be initiating your living room.
So incredible. So astounding to me, actually, and unexpected. I mean, I didn't plan it. I didn't pressure anyone about it. I didn't pressure you about it. I just said, is there a possibility? An interesting invitation.
Well, Marge, the truth is the way Leslie and I have always worked is we only go where we're invited. We don't just plan events and do them. That's not how it works. We've always treated Corelight like a flower. It blooms and the scent goes out, and anybody who's drawn to it comes. It's always been very organic. We've never advertised, and we only go where we're invited. So the fact that you invited me, that's spirit speaking and saying, yes, there's something here. So that's always how that works.
That's interesting because one of the traits in my human design book that I just received last night is that I wait until I'm invited.
Mm,
You and I share that in common. I
mm.
don't pressure people. I wait until I'm invited. And that feels so blessed, so comfortable, so
Yes.
beautiful.
Well, it's in
Beautiful.
alignment. It's in alignment with the divine plan
Exactly.
because the invitation comes through the heart. It's somebody's heart opening. And how does spirit speak to us? Through the heart. So it's spirit speaking through. When there's inspiration, there's an invitation.
And I remember when you first told me the title for your new videos, which you'll be showing at Temple Buddhist Center. And also, I am imagining that you may use some of them at the home event. That'll be
Yes.
complete.
Oh, absolutely. We're just going to keep deepening into those mind yoga practices. So we will show them. Yeah.
And what I said to you was, Brad, why yoga of the mind? Why not yoga of the heart? And then, interestingly, just this morning, I was rereading the email you sent to your list. And thank you for sending that, forwarding it to me. Now I'm on your list. I didn't realize I wasn't.
Nor did I assumed you were, but here you go.
But in your description of your own, who you are and who Leslie is, you talk about Corelight as a nonprofit organization. It's a 501c3, just like Called by Love Institute is, dedicated to the awakening of the global heart.
That's it.
Awakening of the global heart. Wow.
Well,
We are
yeah.
so aligned.
Well, people sometimes hear the yoga of the mind and they think, well, I don't want to do that. It's about the mind, and I don't want to have anything to do with the mind. I'm all about the heart. But the metaphysical principle that is a very high spiritual truth is that it is the mind that blocks us, the egoic mind, let's say, the lower mind, that blocks us from accessing the heart. So if you want to fully access the heart, if you want to live with an open heart all the time, which is possible, one needs to clear the egoic mind. That's the principle. Because otherwise, you know, the normal, let's say the average, the 3D heart is like a valve, and it opens and closes with negative and positive stimuli from the outside. But when we do the clearing work, we practice the yoga of the mind as well as other practices that clear the ego and clear our patterns and strengthen the witness. That's when we can keep the heart open at all times, no matter negative or positive stimuli. The heart can remain open. And sometimes the first time people hear that, it's a shock because we don't realize that that is possible, because we live with the heart like a valve through, at least through childhood, until we start to go, um, we start our conscious spiritual path, the path of awakening. And then we realize we learn to keep the heart open more and more and more. The more we do the clearing work and the less we live from our patterns, because the less we get triggered, right? When we don't have those patterns. So anyway, that's the yoga of the mind. The yoga of the mind is so that we can awaken our hearts and live with a fully open heart all the time. And my belief, my understanding is that that's where we're headed as a collective. That's why probably everybody listening to this call is part of the same soul group. And we came to be midwives. We came to be midwives of this new paradigm of the heart. That is what Leslie and I like to call it. And people have different names for it, but it's a whole new paradigm that's birthing. We've been in the paradigm of patriarchy or the paradigm of separation, whatever you want to call it, for many thousands of years. And here we are on the cusp of this new paradigm, which is about love. And the love is another one of those steps towards joy, right? We start with relaxation, peace, we move more into love, and beyond that is joy. Anyway,
One
you
of
were going to say, yeah.
One of the interesting things, as I was doing about 3 years of work with Terry O'Fallon in her model of understanding consciousness, stages of consciousness, is that love is found all of the way up and all of the way down. And she uses a model that understands stages through words, the words people speak. And interestingly, all of the other words at the time that she told me this, she may have found more, but the only word that goes all of the way up and all of the way down is love. The only word. All of the other words come with certain levels of maturity and disappear with certain levels of greater maturity. And so words come and go depending on our consciousness. Except, now, does that mean that love shows up the same way, all of the way from the bottom to all of the way at the top? No, love shows up differently. And so I can see that so clearly in my own childhood. I was born to people who were in deep sorrow. Why? Because my older brother and sister, who were twins, died at birth. And one Gerald lived one day, or Geraldine lived one day, and Gerald was died at birth, one or the other, at birth in one day. And all of my life, I saw the tombstone that had their names on it there in Boulder, Colorado. And my father, when he died when I was 11, and my mother, who lived until she was 74. And someday, who knows, I may be buried where my brother is on the backside. It's a family plot. But the love that showed up in my childhood looked different. It was the love of a Christian Seventh-day Adventist, actually, family. You have parents who have different values politically than you do. I know that. You've told me that. And my birth parents, my family of origin, had different values than I do. Now, I mean, I was in my 20s or 30s even when I went back to college and to finish my bachelor's degree and majored in political science and found out what the parties actually stood for and how government actually works. And I thought, oh my God, I'm not a Republican after all. My values are different than that. I'm more aligned with a conservative Democrat. Discovering it in my 30s, probably. What have we discovered about ourselves as we have grown and more aware?
Sorry, I missed, there was some noise. I missed that last part of what you said. Could you repeat that, please?
As we have grown and become more aware of our own experiences and our individualized values, they're not the same as everyone else's, including my family of origin. They're different, but that doesn't make one right or one wrong. It just means we look through different lenses.
Yes, well, and isn't that so much of what all of us are experiencing in the world right now? And what prevents us from living in our joy is this increasing polarization, especially politically. And so I feel like that's, that fans the flames of my passion for the work that I do and for these little simple practices of mind yoga that we're going to be talking about in Kansas City at your house and at the Buddhist Center. It's Carl Jung used to talk about holding the tension between the two sides of any polarity. And that is how, the Buddhists call it finding the middle way, right? But either way, it's the same thing. It's about not it's about having no preferences. It's about not choosing a side. Because once we choose a side, then we're in the polarized dance of duality. And the coin is always going to be flipping. So, it doesn't mean that we don't use our discernment and we don't, uh, behave with wisdom, and higher consciousness. But at the same time, if we have heavy preferences in this world, we're going to be on that treadmill, the treadmill of chasing what we feel is the positive and running from what seems to be the negative. And that's just the nature of the planet. But it does keep us in that polarized heart. It keeps us in the negative and positive stimuli of the heart opening and closing like a valve. So I just feel like lately, and I'm sure this is not news to anybody, but we're in this increasing polarization of our world, especially politically. And how do we navigate that? How do we get through that?
How do we
And
return to joy?
and that's it. How do we navigate that and maintain our joy? And it's one of the, this is a cliche, but it's very true. And that is, it's a choice in any moment of choosing love over fear. The incitement I was talking about before, we're being incited into polarization, incited into fear at every turn throughout the day. And there's a way through that. In my experience, I only speak from my personal experience. It's about this practice of witnessing and holding the tension between the two sides. And it's that path where we can maintain the witness, which helps us to maintain the open heart. And to remember that the world that we're living in is an illusion. You know, we make it so real, especially when it comes to politics. Everybody suddenly gets all contracted and fearful, and we choose sides, and we're right, and everybody else is wrong. And um, you know, ultimately, the world is an illusion. That's what the ancient masters have told us, the enlightened ones have told us for millennia, for eons. And quantum physics is finally catching up and discovering that, yeah, what seems to be solid and real is actually 99 point whatever percent space. And how can that be, right? The mind just like it's impossible to fathom that. You knock on the wood and it seems so solid and real, but that's 99% space. So anyway, I remember that because when we make things real in this world, especially politics these days, we're on the treadmill. We're going to be locked in. And so my experience is that the way to joy is to develop whatever practices we can that remind us of this truth, that we are souls having a human experience. We're here incarnate in these seemingly real bodies for a few years, but that's not who we are. We slip them off like an overcoat when it's time to complete. And the true self with the capital S remains. And so the path, in my estimation, is about doing everything we can to remember in every moment possible, as often as possible, that that's who we are as the self with a capital S. We are pure love, we are pure consciousness, we are pure awareness, we are the soul. We are not these bodies, we're not our thoughts, we're not our emotions. And that's what I call the witness. And the more we can live in that, the more joyful we are, the more easy life becomes, the more we can live our soul's purpose. So anyway, is that how does that resonate with you, Marge? What do you have to say about that?
I totally, totally agree with you. And what I would love to do, because you've experienced so many of them in the last 3 or 4 3 years, well, I would just say, um, is to sort of unpack how miracles birth. They can birth in multiple ways, as a complete surprise out of the blue, or they can birth as a result of sitting in the quiet. But let's talk a little bit about the birthing of miracles and how they happen. And one, where would you like to start with that, Brad? Because I see them in your life.
Yes. Oh boy, I feel like I'm a living example of many miracles unfolding. Let's see where this is. We could talk for hours about this one subject. So let me see. Where should I start? Um, First of all, I mean, I feel like just every moment of life is a miracle in and of itself. If we truly look with, with true eyes at what's happening in every moment, life is a miracle. But I think what you're referring to is really the extraordinary circumstances that can drop in, right? And uh, you know, change our path and make us miraculously make us remember that we're on a miraculous path. Um, so for me, what I can tell you is that I feel my life, my path has been always about laying a groundwork, creating the conditions, if you will, for miracles to occur. And I think that's all we can do. We can't make the miracle happen, but we can certainly prepare the ground. We can make the ground fertile and we can create the conditions by which miracles can manifest. And so we talked at length on one of the other podcasts about it, so I won't repeat the whole story, but the upshot of the story was, the way that I live is, we call the path of skywalking.
Yeah.
And that word skywalking, if somebody's not familiar with that, it's really about walking on our faith. Uh, it's about, Jesus said, "Seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all else shall be added unto you," right? That is such a powerful statement, and it's old-fashioned words, but what he's saying is, seek first your own awakening and seek first to help others as well, to serve others. Seek first that path of awakening to who you truly are, the self with the capital S. Seek that first, and you don't have to worry about anything else. Everything else comes to you. And to me, that's the miracle of this path of skywalking that I live. And I don't claim to be 100% at it, but I certainly have practiced it for several decades. And so I'm pretty good at it. And what I found most recently was like, wow, I by not putting my focus on things like making money, things like making life safe and secure. Those things come, but ultimately, how are we the most safe and secure? It's the card that you drew, Marge. It's grounding on the core. That's when we truly know safety and security, and that's when true joy can be born, is when we learn that path of walking on our faith, grounding on the core, not on the things of the material world. And what happened to me, again, just to like very quickly, I think what you're referring to, Marge, is it was a few years ago that I got a call out of the blue from some funders in London who had discovered our book by word of mouth. Somebody handed them a copy, and they offered to support our work. And they've funded this new project called Mind Yoga, which has been a couple years in the making. And it's been a lifelong vision of mine that's now come true. It's manifested. But it's not like I didn't make a whole plan of how to manifest that. I could feel that was my soul's purpose. I could feel it was my destiny. And all I did was create the conditions to allow the miracle to manifest. And how do we create the conditions? Practicing witnessing, clearing the ego, clearing the mind stuff that would prevent us from accessing the heart, living in love, living in joy. It's that's the basic practice. And I call it, I see there's two different ways of manifesting. One is what most people know, which is the yang way of manifesting, which is yang being outer, the active principle. So it's the doing. And that works just fine. We can create vision boards and we can make a list of the 100 things we have to do to accomplish a goal. And we can do it that way. And that's great. But there's another way. And that's, I think, the way that most people don't realize. And it's the yin way of manifesting, which is this path I'm describing. It's the yin is the inner, the passive principle. It only seems passive because it's what we're taught. And it's only considered passive because it's inner, it's invisible. But it's not really passive. It's much more about just doing the inner work. It's a lot of activity on the inner planes, right? And so that yin way of manifesting is about walking that path of skywalking where we're living on our faith. And that creates the conditions by which miracles can manifest. So anyway, that's my my little spiel on miracles. What do you say about that?
Well, it's really interesting how this is manifested so profoundly in just the last experience of this trip to the United States. And yeah, and two of your stops have been where I knew people, but especially the first one, Ross Hostetter is on the call today, in Boulder, Colorado. and and amazingly, the synchronicities are just astounding. You were in a beautiful private home that was just across the street and around the corner from where I lived and went to junior high school.
Isn't it amazing? And
Super.
then my hosts are close friends of Ross and Mary. And I mean, the dots connecting. I don't know about you, but almost everybody I meet is saying the same thing these days, that the dots are connecting so much more than ever before, and the circles are tightening. And I like to look at it as the invisible hand working overtime to bring us all together, right?
And I had mentioned the name of someone that has been significant to Ross and significant to me. And I said, when you're in Boulder, you really should meet this person. And it all unfolded effortlessly without my effort, without your effort.
Yeah. Well, that's the invisible hand, right? The unfathomable intelligence of the divine at work when we surrender, when we live that skywalking path of walking on our faith. That's preparing the conditions, isn't it?
And actually, that same kind of miracle is unfolding in time, future time now, but it's soon going to be present time here in Kansas City. It was not your plan to come to Kansas City.
No, no. But thank you for the invitation and thank you for making it possible.
Making a connection, which I'm really good at.
You are. You are a networker and a manifester extraordinaire.
And I think that probably is one of the ways that spirit will use me in this fourth act of my life. I'm too old now to stand up and dance on the platform like I used to. I don't have that agility to do that. what I still have is the heart agility to go into the vastness, to bring it back and bring people together. And it's happening here in Kansas City. You and Victor connected. I just suggested it, invited you, both of you, in the same email, gave you each other's email addresses, and said, I think you're a match. I think it would be a wonderful event here in Kansas City. Everything else unfolded on its own.
Indeed. Indeed. Victor being the head of the Temple Buddhist Center. So thank you, Marge. Thank you so much for making those connections.
But it's not me making them. That's what's so
Right.
clear to me. It's
Yeah.
not me making them. It's spirit using me to
Yes.
make the connections.
Yeah.
And that it's a huge, huge difference.
Well, and this has been your whole life, hasn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
I watched what you created at Unity of Tustin. Leslie and I watched what you did, and how beautiful that you were that vehicle. We're all vehicles, right? We're a conduit for spirit to work through us. And that is one of your primary gifts. You're wide open channel for that. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
So true. And we've gone into the first hour, and in the last 30 minutes, I love to invite people to share their own oh my God moments. But this is a time I also always pause to mention that Called by Love Institute is 100% built on the giving and the love donations of people who choose to support it. There's no big giver at this point other than myself, who I always know that if there's not enough money to pay for the platform, my personal bank account will be the reserve. and, and guess what? That's the way spirit can use me. It's called tithing to your spiritual good. There's nothing that makes my heart happier and more joy filled than tithing to my spiritual good. I believe in that totally 100%. And the other thing I always want to mention is there is a love donation button on our website, and also the button that says join our tribe. Most people sometimes do not understand that that also gets you on the email list. We don't overwhelm people with emails. We only do calls once a month, and there are a few emails before it and after it when you get the replay. This time I'm going to tell you about another event with that email that sends out the replay for this call. And so those two buttons are really important buttons. And let's go into the time of oh my God moments that some of you have experienced. And I invite you to raise your hand either by waving at us or by using the button at the bottom. And Ross Hofstetter has his hand raised. So Garth, bring in Ross Hofstetter. Hey.
Hey, so it's just a joy to spend an hour with the two of you and to see you again, Brad, and after just a couple of weeks where we were here in person. So I've got a question or maybe a observation taking us to the top of the call about joy. And posed as a question, it would be, is joy an actionable form of love?
Ah, what a great question.
And let me give you a little bit of a context that came to me yesterday because Marge is asking for aha moments. The When I came out of meditation yesterday, there was this very clear insight that what we're doing is a lot like a bull ride in a rodeo. Okay. So the bull ride is the act, that is the ultimate act of the rodeo where some guy or gal gets on a 2,000-pound beast that has no other objective but to twist and turn and buck and throw them 30 feet in the air. Okay. So I had a kid when we were up on the farm that was a bull rider, and I said, "Well, what is it all about?"
Well, let me pop in here. Let me pop in here because my father used to do the rodeos all the time. My birth father. We always rode in the powwow parade in Boulder, and the family rode horses in the parade. He was on the civic committees that promoted the powwow, and he was an avid horseback rider. And he would ride pickup man for the bullfighters.
That's the rodeo clown, the most athletic person. But no, maybe we'll rename this whole thing the Powwow Parade. That's not a bad name. But in any event, this bull rider basically says, okay, well, what's it all about? Well, you got one hand in the air, you've got the other hand on the rope that's connecting you to the bull, and you've got your mind in the middle. That's how you ride the bull. One hand in the air, one hand in the rope, mind in the middle. And so much of your work, Brad, is all about the mind in the middle. Okay. The mind in the middle, because the one hand in the air is this gift, this gift that we have of whatever we want to call it, the oneness, the unity consciousness, the joyfulness, the spiritual work. And we've got our hand on the bull, which is what we're riding in this world. And this is a hard world, Bucko. I mean, death is the stalker in this world. Things that aren't even a living thing, like a virus, not even an animal, can take us down. And we're constantly watching, right? This whole thing, like here goes a spiritual teacher that couldn't handle his sexual impulses. Boom, 30 feet in the air. He's off the pole. He was riding it for a while, but boom, they're gone. And every day I'm off the pole. It's like, oh God, my heart gets closed, like, and I'm grinding. It's like every day, there's like getting bucked off the bull. So I just want to kind of have that as a metaphor, but the insight was, to your point, Marge, the only thing that goes all the way down from the hand in the air down into the bull is love, okay? And that the mind needs to be cleared, okay, in order for that to get into the bull. And I will just note one thing I learned from you just 2 weeks ago, Brad, when you're talking about your experience out in the jungle. Okay, I don't need to get into all the details of it, but essentially you put yourself in a context where every form of negativity was just pouring into your body, just pouring into it. That's the bull. And you had enough mental practice and witnessing practice and discipline practice to ride that bull to a point where it was calm and peaceful and all the things opened up. And when I heard that from you, it was just like saying, right on, man. That's riding the bull. You got it. You got it. You got the whole thing. You're like you've ridden him to a piece. And sometimes that happens in a rodeo where the big bronc and bull 2,000 pounds, they just buck themselves out and they start running around the ring, bucking a little bit harder, and then they start walking and they're calm. Okay. Then the rider just gets off. And
Wow.
so anyway, I just want to throw out that metaphor and then ask whether or not joy is one of the vehicles. And so I'm always looking for actionable forms of love that I can do in that bull ride. Okay. Because I'm not a huge spiritual adept, but I can love, I can care for people, I can help them, I can support them. And it's just great to think about joy as one of the things that you can bring to the bull using that metaphor. And I'll stop there.
Oh, what a brilliant metaphor. I mean, I love that. Can I use that in my work? Yeah. I have I have mapped out in my head how the mind yoga courses are going to work, and I've got so many different images. I find images are super important to ground the witness. Your image is brilliant, Ross. And one of the other ones we use is being the fulcrum of the seesaw, at the middle point where life is going up and down, and the witness is at the fulcrum, watching life go up and down, holding a balance, right? Um, like Jung used to say, holding the tension between the two sides. And so the metaphor that you give is absolutely accurate. Somebody else gave another one recently at this past weekend here in Ashland at the retreat I did in Ashland, Oregon. And they said, when you have a coin and you put it on a table with your finger on top and you flick it and it spins around, you don't see the two sides. It's one coin. It's no longer the two, it's the one. So that's another metaphor for the witness. But anyway, to come to your point, I feel like, yeah, what you're talking about is the actions we can take to develop the love and the joy. What I see the different paths of yoga, the four main paths of yoga, all speak to that. And one of the ones that I practice, and I know that both of you practice, and probably many people on the call practice, is the path of karma yoga. Karma meaning action, and yoga meaning union with the divine, with the divine self within us. And so the path of finding the divine self within us through action. What does that mean? For me, it means putting my love into action. And so that's what the humanitarian arm of our nonprofit, Seeds of Light, we serve the marginalized communities near us in South Africa, especially orphans and vulnerable children. And I have found that to be one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my life. It's brought me so much joy, right? And developed my capacity to love and keep my heart open in the face of suffering. So karma yoga being a perfect example of what you're saying, Ross, like, and I know you do this through your charity work, you put your love into action, and Mary too. She's in India doing that now. And so anytime I think that we put our love into action, we're on one of the main four paths, karma yoga being one of the four main paths of yoga, the ways of awakening to the self through putting our love into action. The one that I teach mostly is the yoga of the mind. And what does that do? Like we said before, it strips away the veils of ego, the veils of the lower mind that prevent us from opening the heart and accessing our love. So I think what you're saying is such an important point that all the paths, it's all about finding love. And the more we find the love, the more we find the joy. And so we could go on. You could take every single path of yoga and extrapolate it in the same way. But does that help? Does that make sense?
Beautiful. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I don't want to take the entire 30 minutes, but it's such a joy to be in this kind of context where all these insights and everything arrive. So, yes. So, thank you.
Well, I have to say, just it was such a pleasure to meet you and Mary in person in Boulder, and I can feel it's just the beginning. More to come.
And while you're talking about karma yoga, I want to tell you that next month, our call is going to be with Phil Goldberg.
Oh, wow.
And he has a brand new book out called Karmic Relief. And the subtitle is Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect for a Joyful, Meaningful Life.
Here we go. You're great. Hey, Brad, it might just be useful just since these will be kind of recorded for posterity for you just to give us the five main branches of yoga. You've talked about two of them, but
Sure.
just reference the other three.
Sure. Well, there are actually four main yogas. We talked about two, the yoga of the mind, and we talked Jnana yoga is what it's called in Sanskrit, and karma yoga is the yoga of action or putting our love into action or selfless service, whatever you want to call that. Another one is Raja Yoga, which loosely translated means royal yoga, and it's involves many things, but maybe the main thing is meditation. So it's basically a path of meditation, among other things. That's one of the paths to the self. And the other one of the main four is Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti being devotion. And so it's a devotional path. And that's where, somebody might, it can look like anything. You might have a great love of Jesus and Mary, or the goddess Lakshmi, or whoever it is that you pour your love out to. It's about opening the heart and loving through devotion to the divine. Nowadays, I think a lot of people feel it for Gaia, for Mother Gaia. We all have a devotion to our Mother Earth. So those are the four main ones. A fifth one, which is the one that most people know of, it's not considered one of the four main ones, but it's Hatha Yoga. And it's ironic that when you say yoga, everybody thinks of Hatha Yoga, but it's not one of the four main ones. But it's a preparation. My experience of Hatha Yoga is that it's so important because Hatha Yoga prepares the body, the physical body, to hold more light and energy. And so it really prepares the body for awakening. It allows you to hold more Kundalini, more light, more energy. Does that help?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I think that
Sure.
that's just
Yeah,
great,
it's a,
Very,
useful, because everybody kind of has a natural path. I know what mine is, and Mary's is different. She's the bhakti path. She
yeah.
really loves devotion and all that. But yeah, it's good to know that there's those four kind of
and
coequal.
mine's the bhakti path, very clear. It was David Now, Brahmananda, that said to me the very first time, "Oh, Marge, you're a bhakti all the way." And we co-taught for 17 years at Unity in Tustin. So before we leave this topic and go to Kate, I just wanted to note that you talked about a Bible verse, Brad, that I related to karma. And it came out of Phil Goldberg's quoting and talking about how we can help shape the karma, shape our fate, shape destiny. And it goes for small groups or for the world. We can help shape it. One of the things that we did at Unity in Tustin for 19 years, every Sunday morning, was sing that song, Seek Ye First the Kingdom of God, and all things else will be added unto you. One side would sing the verse, the other side would sing Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. And this went on 52 weeks a year for 19 years. That is a very strong expression of the good, the true, and the beautiful, and where you put your focus. So they're not doing it anymore, but that was what happened for 19 years. And I know that Kate has her hand up, and I want to go to Kate.
Hello, everyone from beautiful Asheville, North Carolina. So great to be with you all and see my dear soul brother, Brad, there at Joan's gorgeous house, which I had to laugh because it almost looks like you're still in Santa Fe. I see Leslie's gorgeous painting behind you and that beautiful vibe. It's very funny. And to meet you, Marge, and everybody else who's on the call. First of all, I just have to laugh with Ross's metaphor, knowing that both Brad and I are Tauruses. So we're kind of the living embodiment of that bull in all of its various formations. But I just wanted to say, there have been so many great topics in this call. I wanted to say something, if I can try to keep it succinct, about joy and miracles, because this is something that's kind of been my life, especially in the last couple of years. One, about joy. Brad knows this about me. I like to think of myself as a joyologist. I'm the one letting people to go out and do things. I even got Brad when he came through here in June in an inner tube going in a very cold waterfall pool. Didn't I, Brad?
Oh,
Which,
yeah, that was
which
great.
he loved. And, you know, so that's kind of been my thing my whole life. But let's just go back a couple years. A couple years ago, I was very much not in joy. I was in kind of between a rock and a hard place in my life here, where I had moved a couple years before. And I was in a very oppressive, anxiety provoking relationship situation that I wasn't knowing how to get out of. I was so in it. And lo and behold, without me trying to plan anything, I hadn't talked to Brad or Leslie in probably 25 or 30 years. I went on Facebook. I commented on one of Brad's projects for Seeds of Life. I said, "Oh, that's so wonderful. I love that you're doing this with these children." And he wrote me back and said, "Kate, haven't heard from you in so long. Let's have a Zoom call." So we get on the Zoom call that was supposed to be like a 20-minute call. It turned into a 2-hour call. In the midst of that, I found out all that had occurred with dear Leslie, you know, who I loved. And I knew Brad and Leslie from Santa Fe because I lived in Santa Fe in the 90s. So in the midst of this call, Brad had no idea where I lived. He starts telling me, "Oh, yes, this UK foundation has funded my mind yoga project, and I've been working on it now for a year already. And they're building a huge spiritual retreat center outside of Asheville." And I was like, "Asheville? Brad, that's where I live now." So this began just a whole, you know, now I'm friends with all those people, and Brad came through here. But the point of it is that spirit, I believe, and I will always believe this, that spirit sent me back Brad at just a really pivotal point in my life, because within a couple months of reconnecting with him, he kind of took me on and mentored me using the mind yoga principles, by the way. And within a couple months of us reconnecting, my whole life shifted. This relationship that I was in was over. I mean, it took a while to unravel that. And Brad kept telling me, "Hang in there, hang in there. There's light at the end of this tunnel." And he was absolutely right. It took about a year. But now I'm on the other side of that. I have this whole new chapter of my life that I'm living in this beautiful place, in this beautiful community. You know, I have freedom and spaciousness that I haven't had in over 10 years. And all of that just came. I mean, I wasn't even looking for it. It was just sent to me like a gift and a prayer from the universe. So, and again, as Brad knows, that I'm eternally grateful for his friendship, his love, and his support. So that's my story. And now my job is to be in love, to do acts of love and service, and to spread joy. And that's really what I want to do. So thank you for listening.
You're really good at it. You are a joyologist.
Thank you.
And I just have to point out that your life changed because you did the inner work, the mind yoga work. The principle that we operate on is that the world is a mirror of our own unconscious self. And so when we go in and change the inner, the outer is going to give us a new reflection. And it was very clear that you were finished with that old reflection. You were ready for that new part of you, which is naturally joyful to be manifest and be mirrored back to you. And so that's what I watched happen was you did the work. It took time, but it's, you know, the practices are simple, but it takes takes some courage to go in and look at you. You know, you have to look at yourself in the mirror, and you gotta do the little practices. But you did it.
Well, and I was thinking about the don't worry, be happy part. Sometimes unraveling that tangled string and ball of worry, anxiety, and stress, it doesn't just go away. You literally have to undo the ball and look at it. And what I've found is the anxiety and the stress and the worry actually led me to places in myself that were unhealed wounds that were calling out for my love, attention, and self-care. So in a way, even all that stress and anxiety that I went through last year was also a spiritual gift, because
Yes.
I couldn't go through my life just ignoring that, just shoving it under the rug. It was taking a toll on me and my life. And just to get it out in the open, to see those parts of myself that were calling for love and caring and breathing and relaxation and healing, has really led me to a whole new relationship with myself, where in the past I was always looking for somebody outside myself to give me, oh, take care of me, give me that love, give me that self-affirmation that I'm longing for. And now I realize the only way I'm ever going to get that is if I give it to myself. So, I mean, what a huge freedom that's been for me after, decades and decades of going down this kind of codependent path, thinking that something outside myself was going to bring me love, peace, and joy, when it never would. So the whole thing is a brilliant gift, and I'm still a newbie. I'm still learning. I still have to catch myself. But for the most part, I'm just finding my life manifesting in more joy, more miracles, and more peace and serenity. So,
Well, Kate, thank you. That's such a great testimonial. You said it so well. It's a great example of how this works. The basic principle is that this is metaphysics. We can only go as high as we're willing to go low. And you went down into the basement, you dug out your basement, and now you're ascending to new heights of joyology. That's how it works,
again,
right?
eternal gratitude. And beautiful to see all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And it has been such a joy, just pure joy, Brad, having you back for this third time. And I invite everyone here to tune in or come to the Temple Buddhist Center service. They live stream it on Sunday morning, and so that will be available on live stream. And I often look at it on live stream. And the Monday gathering and the Tuesday gathering, which we just announced today, the miracle that will be occurring at Holly, my home here in Briarcliff West. Brad.
So let me just say, Marge, for anybody who wants more information about any of those events, this Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday events in Kansas City, October 26, 27, 28, they're on our website at corelight.org, and just go to the events page and you'll see them all listed there. And I'd love to meet you in person. And yeah, the Sunday services will be live streamed as well. So even if you're not there in person, I'll look forward to having you with us in the field of love.
And I'm looking forward to seeing your arrival here, Brad. And actually, Coral Rose has also told me she'll be here. And so, Coral, meet Brad. If you haven't met in person, you soon will.
Well, Marge, thank you again so much for inviting me and to Kansas City and to your podcast today. And thank you for all the beautiful work you do in the world. You bring so much light and love and joy into the world, being the beautiful vehicle that you are. So I'm deeply grateful for you.
And much love and many, many blessings to all of you. And until next time with Phil Goldberg, the third Wednesday of November. And so much love and so many blessings. And so it is.